Have you ever stopped to think about what it actually takes to protect a place like the Amazon or the Galapagos? I mean, it's got to be more than just drawing a line on a map and saying don't touch, right? Well, today we're going deep inside Ecuador's strategic blueprint for nature to see how a real working plan to save an incredible ecosystem really comes together. All right, so let's get into it. We're looking at what it takes to protect a natural area, and it really all boils down to this one crucial document. But as we're about to find out, having all the best science in the world is only like half the battle. And this right here is the big question we're tackling today. You know, you can have the smartest ecologists and biologists in the world. They can pinpoint all the problems perfectly, but if the plan itself isn't built for the real world, it's just going to end up collecting dust on a shelf. The science can be spot on, but that alone, it's just not enough. So at the very heart of this whole thing is a document called the Plan de Manejo, which is just Spanish for management plan. Now, don't think of this as some boring report, no way. This is basically the 10-year Bible for a protected area. It lays out everything from how you're going to monitor jaguars and manage tourist trails to how you're going to work with local communities. It's the master plan for a whole decade. So if you're the one writing this master plan, where do you even begin? Well, it's kind of obvious when you think about it. Before you can protect anything, everybody has to agree on what's most important. You've got to define the ecological crown jewels. And that's where this idea of conservation values comes into play. These are the specific, essential things a park is set up to protect. They are the entire reason the protected area exists in the first place. They're the absolute non-negotiables. And check out how planners actually think about this. On the left, you've got what's called the coarse filter. This is about protecting the big picture, the whole landscape, the whole ecosystem. Think of it like protecting the entire treasure chest. Then, on the right, the fine filter zooms way in on the individual jewels inside that chest, like a single super rare species. You absolutely need both approaches. And this example from Ecuador's Los Ilanizas Reserve just illustrates it perfectly. The plan there protects the huge Parma grasslands. These are these incredible high-altitude ecosystems that act like giant sponges, providing water to cities down below. That's your coarse filter. And at the same time, it protects the iconic Andean bear that lives in those grasslands. That's your fine filter. See? You need both to really make it work. Okay, so we know what we need to protect. Now comes the hard part. A serious reality check. This is the point where the beautiful strategy on paper has to collide with the messy, complicated real world. And to get that reality check, planners actually borrow a classic tool straight from the business world, a SWOT analysis. It's just a really powerful way to get honest about the situation. You look at your internal strengths and weaknesses, and then your external opportunities and threats. So let's make this real with an example from Podocarpus National Park. Internally, a huge strength is its one-of-a-kind biodiversity. But an internal weakness, the roads to get there are in terrible shape. Externally, there's this massive opportunity with international funding available. But at the same time, there's a constant threat from farms expanding right up to the park's borders. A good plan has to juggle all of these things. So you have your conservation values, those crown jewels you're trying to protect. And you have your SWOT analysis, the lay of the land, warts and all. The next totally logical step is to smash these two things together to create an actual actionable strategy. Let's see how they do it. The methodology they use is this really clear 5-step process. It just moves so logically. You start by identifying the core values, then you evaluate how they're doing and what's threatening them. You apply that SWOT analysis, and then, and this is so important, you create specific strategies and figure out how to measure if they're actually working. And listen, this isn't just theory on a slide. This process is getting real results on the ground. In Cajas National Park, it led to projects that brought back vital water sources for communities. In the Galapagos, it helped them listen to the community to fight overfishing. And in another reserve, it gave them a clear way to manage conflicts over who gets to use the resources. It works. But even if you have the most technically perfect, scientifically sound plan in the world, you still have to face the most complex, unpredictable, and honestly, the most important variable of all, people. And that brings us to what is probably the toughest ethical question in all of conservation. What happens when protecting an ecosystem means telling local communities they can't live the way their ancestors have for generations? Do you put the animals and plants first or the people? The answer isn't to pick one over the other. The only way this works long term is to find a balance. And that means you have to bring the scientific data and the ancestral traditional knowledge to the very same table. And you have to make absolutely sure that the decisions about who gets to use nature's resources are made fairly for everyone. So all of this brings us to our final and maybe the most important takeaway about what one of these management plans really is. And I promise you, it's probably not what you think. Here's the crucial point. The plan isn't some static rulebook that you write and then lock in a drawer for 10 years. As the International Union for Conservation of Nature says so well, it's a living guide for an ongoing conversation. It's a process where everyone learns together, constantly. Because when you really boil it all down, a successful plan is one that gets the simple truth. You can't protect an ecosystem without also protecting the people, the culture, and the knowledge that are completely tied to it. That is what effective conservation looks like. The real question then, for all of us, is how do we start applying that lesson to the challenges right in our own backyards?